The expectations of others, well, it holds little value when you believe in yourself. Outside of a pair of bogeys early on Saturday, Brian Harman has not flinched. The 36-year-old, he's a tour mainstay, and he's now 18 holes away from the crowning achievement of his career. Following a Saturday 69, Harman remains 5 shots clear of the field, 175-1 pre-tournament. Storyline spoiled, tickets perhaps cashed. It's Brian Harman's to lose as we head to the final day of major golf this season. And for more following moving day, we say hello to CBS Sports senior golf writer Kyle Porter. KP, Brian Harman more than setting himself up for major success here. All aspects of his game elite right now. I guess it maybe begs the question, where did this level of play come from?
Well, listen, Brian Harman's a good player, but, he really set himself up over the first couple of days, Joe, with an extraordinary putting performance in the first and second round. So he gained 8 strokes on the field with his putting in the first 2 rounds. And what that does when you lead by 5 going into a weekend is it takes out, especially at this golf course, it takes out an element of decision making on a kind of a heavy risk reward golf course. And so for Brian Harman, he can kind of go out on Saturday, Sunday, and he actually did this on Saturday. And you still have to hit the shots. Obviously, you have to go out and hit shot after shot after shot, but you don't have to take on some of the risk that is involved at Hoylake. And we saw this on the 18th hole. Was a great example of he's just blowing it way out to the left because it doesn't matter if he makes par there. Par there is great for him because he had such a big lead coming into the day, and all he's trying to do is extend it into Sunday. So while you still have to hit the shots on the weekend, it does take out an element of decision making that is kind of built in for you now, where you don't have to take on that risk. You
got internal OB right, but as Tommy Fleetwood showed, you do have some TIO left that you could take advantage of if you have this lead as well. 26 in the world golf ranking, to your point. Guys like this win majors sometimes. They don't dominate them in this fashion. What's allowed Harman to maybe sustain what feels unsustainable? What part of this attack, it was the part of the first 2 days, but over the 3-day span has surprised you the most out of Brian Harman?
Well, I think it was really on Friday. There's always a moment in a tournament where when the guy that goes on to win, you can kind of feel it early in the week when you look back of like, oh, that was when he was kind of winning this golf tournament. And that's what it felt like at like 4 a.m. on Friday morning when Harman went on that run where he made 4 birdies in a row. He eagled the 18th. And he just, he was kind of cleaning up from everywhere on a day where it was really tough. He played 2.5 strokes over par on Friday. And again, that, just giving him that buffer going into the weekend, I think it benefits him that he's been in this position before. He has Aaron Hills under his belt. He led after 54 there. Talked about how he learned a lot from that experience. Didn't go on to win. Obviously, Brooks Koepka won that golf tournament. But Harman is not the type of guy, sometimes we see guys that are, I think of Paul Dunn back in 2015. He led the Open Championship or co-led the Open Championship in 2015 as an amateur. That's a out of body experience, right? That's not what's going on with Brian Harman here. He's 36 years old. He's been on tour forever. He's played in countless major championships. So I think what he's feeling is unusual, but it's not an out of body experience. It's not forcing him to make crazy decisions. He's staying within himself, and it's been really dominant and in a way kind of fun to watch.
Our folks in the research department giving him the Vandeveld treatment there, as you just saw, would match the largest blown lead at an Open Championship if that was to come to pass. We'll get to some of the chase pack here in a moment, but a lead this large, KP, in a way it opens up multiple roads to victory. You sort of allude to it in what he did or the approach he took at number 18. What's the proper approach over the final 18 holes of this tournament for Harman, as he on Sunday maybe takes on a bit of weather and the best in the world all going pedal to the floor, taking dead aim as the sun rises on Hoylake?
Yeah, I think physically you kind of take that part out of it, and it's all mental. I was watching, there's a great documentary on Rory winning here in 2014 when he won at Hoylake for his claret jug. And he talked about the thing that he was most proud of on Sunday, Joe, was just keeping his head when guys started coming at him, emotionally and mentally. it can get, even though Harman's been out there forever and he's played in a lot of major championships, it can still get difficult when you're standing on 11 and somebody's within 2, somebody's within 3, whatever the case might be. We see this happen, even guys with big leads. I think back to Dustin Johnson at the 2020 Masters, massive lead going into the final round. It'll always get tight just because that's the way major championship golf is structured. Guys will come at you. You've got more holes in front of you, so you can kind of bat them away as you come down the stretch. But mentally, it's hard to deal with. It's hard to deal with somebody getting within 1 or 2 strokes. So I think for me, that's the thing I'm watching is mentally, does he not lose himself over the last 18 holes and start making silly decisions that lead to bogey and double bogey? If he doesn't do that, then he's going to win the Claret Jug.
Yeah, weathering a couple early bogeys here on Saturday and weathering a couple early bogeys on Sunday are two completely different things. You talked about Rory's win at Hoy Lake. 6 was the advantage heading to the final round back in 2014. 5 is the advantage here for Harman. He set himself up perfectly for his latest success and his greatest one for that fact. But last year, we did watch Cam Young, who is next closest and will be the other in that final pairing. We watched him put together that 7 under 65 with an eagle at the last, only to come up 1 short to Cam Smith at the old course. Young, I'm sure, would sign for 14 under right now and an eagle at the 72nd, but that still might not be enough, KP. How, and maybe more importantly, where can Cam Young apply pressure to Harman on Sunday?
Well, Cam Young's the most interesting chaser to me, and not just because he's the closest. He's the most interesting chaser because if you look statistically, he's second in this field off the tee and first on approach shots. He's been the best ball striker in the field throughout the week. Now, early in the week, Harman got him with putt after putt after putt after chip after chip after chip and built up that lead. So it puts Cam Young in a difficult position going into Sunday. But what his statistical profile tells me and what watching him on Saturday tells me is he's going to have opportunities to make putts. Now, you might have to make all of them to have a chance against Brian Harman to catch him, to surpass him on Sunday. But those opportunities are going to be there. So that is something to watch out for, is he's hitting the ball like an Open champion hits it. It's just whether or not he makes a couple early. Maybe you get a ball bouncing the wrong way for Harman. That he, to me, not just because he's in that last pairing with Harman, but because of the way he's playing, is the most interesting chaser of the group.
I want to talk about one other chaser as well, because Jon Rahm made just about everything he looked at on Saturday en route to a record 8 under 63. Still not even enough to get him into the final pairing. He'll go off in the penultimate group instead. Rahm is one off Young, but then multiple off the lead here, obviously. If there's a flyer to be taken elsewhere, not in that final pairing, is Rahmbo the guy? I know you talked a little bit about replicating the type of performance we saw on Saturday. Do you see possibility in maybe what Rahm rolled out here on Saturday doing that again and giving a scare at the top of the leaderboard from a guy who has won a major this season and prior to?
Well, I think that's the thing he has going for him, right? Is he's a 2-time major winner, and the guys ahead of him are not. I don't have as much belief in Rahm as I do in Cam Young. I think his 63 on Saturday was kind of just that's like everything in the tank. Now, he could make me look foolish and shoot another 63 on Sunday, but it's so difficult, Joe. We've seen it. I think back to Justin Rose in 2018 at Carnoustie when Francesco Molinari went on to win. He made the cut on the number and then finished T2 in that tournament. That feels a little bit like what Rahm is doing, where you make the cut barely. I think he made it by 1 stroke, and then you get kind of close, but it's just so difficult to barely make the cut and then go on to win the golf tournament when you've got somebody doing what Brian Harman is doing. And not to mention that, but Cam Young ahead of Rahm, I just have more belief in kind of the way he's structuring his tournament right now than in what Rahm is doing. You know,
we get a lead by 5 here heading to the final round in an Open championship, and it feels like the check engine light came on, or the gasoline light just came on. You're trying to do the math. Do I have enough time? Do I have enough space? Where do I accelerate? We got to try and make sense of this number, KP. For those in the chase back, and even for Harman, what's the number in their head that you think gets it done tomorrow at the Open championship?
Well, I think Brian Harman's trying to shoot even par.
Okay.
Right? If he goes out and shoots 71 tomorrow and finishes at 12 under, I think that is number that wins the golf tournament, that means that Cam Young would have to shoot 5 under. That means Jon Rahm would have to shoot 6 under. That means everybody else would have to shoot. You're starting to talk about 63, 62 just to get even close. And it's very unlikely for those guys to do that. It could happen. I mean, that's why we watch, right? It could take place, but it's very unlikely that it does. And so I think if you're Jon Rahm, you have to say, hey, I'm going to just go try and replicate what I did on Saturday. He actually talked about this on Saturday after his round. He said it's very unusual for every shot to be exactly where you want it, for every shot to land exactly where you envisioned it landing. And he could do that again, and it might be what he has to do to go out and win this golf tournament on Sunday.
Perfection might not be enough, but it's been almost perfect for Brian Harman, who looks to get the job done and hoist the claret jug on Sunday. KP, don't go engraving just yet. It's going to be a fun Sunday at the Open Championship. Appreciate you. All right, here's a look at that leaderboard. The lead is 5 for Brian Harman heading to Sunday. Cam Young, Brian Harman will comprise that final pairing. Jon Rahm will be in the penultimate pairing and look to do what he did here on Saturday, 8 under. Get him to 14. Would that be enough? Only one way to find out. We'll see you on Sunday at the Open. Moving day at the 151st playing of the Open Championship. Royal Liverpool, Hoylake, quite the setting. Don't find yourself up against one of those bunkers. That's the only way things could go wrong for tournament leader Brian Harman, who entered the day with a 5-stroke lead. But we begin with a man on the move, Jon Rahm. 12 shots back to start the day. Wouldn't finish there. World number 3 pouring one in from 33 feet at the 16th, his 7th of the day. How about another at 18? Rahm into the clubhouse at 6 under, following an 8 under 63 low round of the week. Lowest round at Royal Liverpool in an Open by 2 shots, and the lowest round of Rahm's major career. Viktor Hovland is trying to cobble together quite the major career as well. Is scared it as of late, but he sits T4 at 5 under following round 3, giving chase to those at the top of the leaderboard, including Cam Young. 8 shots back entering the day, but with shots like that, making up ground in a hurry. To 2 feet at the par 3 ninth would make the birdie, then finishing off his day with another bird. A touch of class from the greenside bunker, leaves himself 3 feet and maybe a smile, Not out of that guy, only if he's got his name on the trophy. That honor, unless something goes wild, likely to belong to Brian Harman. 5 was the lead at the day's beginning. 5 is the lead at day's end. Par 4 12th after making a couple bogeys early would get him back and then some. Here at the par 3 13th, Harman for 20 foot. The birdie look. Got it. 12 under. Brian Harman, your leader at the 151st playing of the Open Championship. And that lead is still 5. Harman and Young will be your final pairing at Hoylake on Sunday as Harman efforts his first career major title. Has been in the mix before. T2 finish at the 2017 U.S. Open. A year ago, T6 at the Open Championship. We'll see if he can get it to the clubhouse. 18 holes to play and a 5-shot lead. They're going to have to chase down Brian Harman. And for more, we welcome in CBS Sports data scientist and host of the First Cut podcast, Rick Gehman. Rick, it's Harman by 5 to start. It's Harman by 5 to finish. No ground made up. And I think if you asked him for an even par Sunday, he would take that in no time. Brian Harman going to hold off some big names. We'll see if he can get it done. But as for Saturday, following those 2 early bogeys, for him to right the ship and then card a few more, it has to be emboldening when you look at the prospect of him perhaps holding that lead on Sunday.
Yeah, certainly, Joe. I mean, he has to feel really good about this Saturday round because it was close to getting away from him early. It was pretty great conditions around Royal Liverpool. We saw what Jon Rahm did early in the day, and he goes out, Harman that is, and makes bogey on 2 of his first 4 holes. And this lead, for at least a moment, got down to 2 shots. And that is when things start spinning fast in a golfer's mind, and you're looking at the leaderboard and you're wondering if you have what it takes to win a major championship. And Harman was able to right the ship, pour a couple of birdies in, get back to that even level par number, and then go out and retain that 5-shot lead that he started the day with. I thought it was impressive, and that is something that he is going to be able to take into the final round if things do start sour for him. Maybe he gets a little unlucky out of the gate. Maybe he's a little bit nervous. I wouldn't fault him for that. He can go back to his Saturday experience and say, okay, plenty of time here. I've done this before. Let's get this thing back on the tracks.
Yeah, he's afforded himself some space here to feel those nerves and work through them on Sunday. But 5 can go away in a hurry. As you said, we saw it get down to 2 quite quickly. It's going to be Cam Young in that group alongside him. Before we get to Young here, Harman's putting is what we talked about through 2 days, and the lack of sustainability and all those putts he was making. Tee to green looked like the way he got it done here on Saturday. Now with multiple routes to possible victory, what part of the game is Harman best suited leaning into come Sunday with this lead?
Yeah, so he's done the vast majority of the hard work, through 54 holes and what he's going to need to do to get through 72 and become your Open champion. I think for me, it's going to be the driver that he's going to lean on. He is one of the most accurate golfers off the tee that we have anywhere in the world. Now, he doesn't hit it very far, which around Royal Liverpool is probably a good thing. You know, the bunkers, the pot bunkers in these fairways, which are literally a penalty, they are around that 290, 300-yard mark. Brian Harman can hit a lot of drivers around this place and not worry about reaching those bunkers, and he does it in a very straight fashion, which allows him to play out of the fairway. So you're seeing a leaderboard that is coming up with kind of the extremes. You're either one of the short, accurate hitters like a Brian Harman, or you're Victor Hovland, Rory McIlroy, Jon Rahm, Cam Young, bombing over all that trouble. If you're anywhere in the middle, you're kind of in a tough spot. So Harman, I think, very much is going to lean on that strength of his game, the accuracy off the tee, not put himself in any bad positions, and just avoid as much danger as possible, because him going sideways is probably the only way that he does not have a claret jug by the time he gets to Sunday night.
Yeah, getting stuck in one of those bunkers or finding some of that internal OB at, I believe, 3 and 18 are likely the big hurdles that Harman has to get over here with his 5-shot lead. Just for a moment here, I want you to exit out of the browser tabs, take off the data cap, put on the podcast hat here for a second. If I told you 4 days ago that this is where we would be through 54 holes, Brian Harman 5 clear of these names, you would have told me what?
I would have told you it's shocking. I would have told you that something has gotten into Brian Harman like we haven't seen before. You know, you mentioned it. He's got a bunch of these top 10 finishes, and he has kind of contended at major championships once or twice, but he is boat racing the field. I mean, this isn't even particularly close. You know, if I was doing a podcast tonight and I was worried about ratings on Sunday, I'd be like, oh, no, it's a lot closer than it feels and things get, but it's not really. I mean, he's dominating the field here, and it's really an impressive feat of what he's been able to do over the course of mostly 2 days, and then he did a little bit of extra work on Saturday as well. I mean, it's kind of hard to put into perspective when you get to a major championship like this, how often they are won by the best of the best, the top golfers in the world. Brian Harman, certainly a talented golfer. I think he entered the week 25th in the official world golf rankings. He's no scrub, but he's not really supposed to win golf tournaments like this. So it would be obviously a huge accomplishment, a career and life-changing moment for him, and one that, even with that great play coming in, I really don't think anybody saw coming.
Yeah, I said to Kyle, guys like this win majors sometimes. Guys like this don't win majors by 5 shots. We don't see it, and what Brian Harman is doing right now is largely unprecedented. We'll see if that lead holds through 18 more holes, and it's going to be the likes of Jon Rahm, Cam Young, others that are going to have to put up special numbers to even put a scare into Harman on Sunday. Talk to me about Young. Is he best suited to make this push to be next closest? We saw what he did on Sunday at the Old Course a year ago. That type of performance will need to be replicated to even put a charge here into Harman.
Yeah, I think, if you're realistically talking about someone else winning this golf tournament, Brian Harman has come back to the field in a big way. But Cam Young is super special. You look at 0 wins on the PGA Tour, but a lot of runner-up finishes, and you can just rattle off the eclectic courses that he has done this at. A very diverse list of like Country Club of Jackson and Harbor Town and the Old Course at St. Andrews. His game travels, and that's what's most impressive about him. So when you get him on a golf course that rewards long, straight, and the ability to have that touch on and around the greens, it's a really good combination for Cam Young. And I don't compare anybody to Tiger Woods. I try not to compare anybody to like the last year of Scotty Scheffler that we have had, but the Cam Young trajectory of knocking on the door repeatedly, showing a bunch of really good skill sets, not having a win yet, feels a lot like what we were talking about with Scotty Scheffler maybe 18 months or 2 years ago. Scotty wins one and then he wins them all. I wonder if eventually when Cam Young wins one, if he starts piling them up in the same way, because he is incredibly talented, Joe. It's a name we're going to be hearing about for a very, very long time.
Yeah, if Cam's looking to hang his hat on anything, maybe it's the fact that down 5 to start the day, you're free-wielding it. I mean, you're taking pretty much dead aim at pins. You're letting driver rip when you wouldn't have otherwise out here at the Open Championship. We'll see if you can close the gap and maybe get some help, as you said, from Harman. Tommy Fleetwood, in many ways here, played himself out of a storybook finish on Saturday. Stuck in neutral on Saturday, I think, is the best way to characterize it, with an even par 71 for Tommy Ladd, who, as we know, well documented his relationship with this place and with this course. How do you characterize his Saturday round? I mean, he had looks. It wasn't messy in many places, just didn't take advantage.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he gave himself a bunch of 15 and 20-foot putts for birdie and didn't really make any of them. And quickly especially as we saw early, Brian Harman was coming back to the field. Tommy Fleetwood was still very much in the mix. And once the crowd kind of realized that Brian Harman was righting the ship, it seems like it lacked a little bit of energy for Tommy, and he could never really get them going. He never rolled in a birdie putt to really get the crowd, chanting his name and putting that fear into the heart of Brian Harman. The other thing to consider is this is not entirely uncharacteristic from Tommy Fleetwood. We've seen it in recent weeks as well. He's a very high ceiling, high floor golfer. And what I mean by that is he's capable of going out and gaining 5, 6, 7 strokes to the field like we've seen at times in major championships, but he's found it difficult to put all 4 rounds together, at least compared to his peers who have a similar ceiling. If you look at how often Tommy gains strokes to the field and how many strokes he gains, his ceiling is actually like Brooks Koepka, but his floor is closer to Adam Schenk. And that's a really big range, and one that makes it difficult to kind of win major championships when all the best players in the world are there staring at you.
Rick, I'm glad you mentioned Brooks Koepka because I know his world ranking comes with a different set of circumstances, having lost points playing on the LIV Tour. But after we saw a world #1 win at the Masters, we saw Koepka, who came into the week at the PGA ranked 42nd in the world golf rankings, hoist that trophy. Then we see Wyndham Clark at the U.S. Open, and we're likely to see Brian Harman in the mid-20s win the Open Championship. Maybe it's, I guess, a testament to the depth on field. Is there a bigger takeaway here from our major champions this season as we are all but engraved here on Sunday at the Open?
Yeah, I like the difference of these major champions, right? You've got Scotty Scheffler, who's such a well-rounded player, or excuse me, Jon Rahm, who's such a well-rounded player. You've got Wyndham Clark kind of just making his name in this year. Brooks Koepka, who's just an elite player in majors, and then you've got Brian Harman. I do think it does speak to the depth of the tour, of the world of golf. I mean, we didn't know what to expect from guys like Brooks, who are playing completely different schedule this year, but to show up and contend in not only the Masters, but the PGA Championship, and prove that it doesn't matter what tour he's on, what country he's in, anything else, he can show up and play. And the other thing is there's just more of these guys coming, right? Like Cam Young looks a lot older than he actually is. And we've got Victor Hovland, who's now starting to seemingly figure out how to play major championships. We talk about it all the time. It's really hard to win a major because you only get 4 whacks at it every single year, and there's so many good guys. Well, now Brian Harman is probably going to steal one away from some of these top names. I mean, it's just an incredibly difficult thing to do, is to win any event, and winning a major is mind-boggling. It's almost unfathomable that Brooks has 5 of them already.
Yeah, it is an amazing feat by Koepka this season, and maybe some bigger picture ideas to be touched upon on Sunday. But the fact of the matter is Brian Harman is 5 clear heading into the final round of the Open Championship, which is not something we thought we would be uttering at this point this week. With that said, and I've posed it to you many times this week and in the weeks prior, it's been Tommy Fleetwood. Are we ready to move off the pick of Tommy Fleetwood and hang our hat on Brian Harman being the champion golfer of the year come Sunday?
Well, I guess there's 2 ways to look at this. I'm very confident Brian Harman is going to have a claret jug on Sunday night. I'm very confident in that. It is unbettable at this point, right? Like if you were looking to go bet something, you could not possibly bet Brian Harman to get it done, despite me almost certain that is what's going to happen. So if you are trying to find something to get interested in before the final rounds, the rest of the thing is wide open. And we talked about Tommy's ability to kind of go low and have that ceiling round if he can follow up a really good one with one that was pretty mediocre. I think that's interesting. Anybody else in this field is going to require Brian Harman to come back. That is the fact of the matter. If Brian Harman plays probably his C- game, it's going to be plenty good to win the Open Championship. So I'm confident, Joe, Brian Harman's going to win, but I would not be running to the window to put my money on it.
Rick Gehman, we appreciate you as always, your insights that is unmatched here on CBS Sports HQ. Thanks. And don't forget, the whole squad breaking it down each and every week on tour. Kyle Porter, Rick Gehman, the whole gang taking you under the ropes and into the action, round by round, tournament by tournament, on the premier pod in all of golf. It's the First Cut Podcast. Download and subscribe today.